Hi there, I'm Dave. I'm the Associate Director here at Wiltshire Creative. Today I'm just going to be having a quick chat with you about acting, some of my experiences on acting, working as a director, and I'm going to give you a small exercise that you can do at home with some of your family members, which will help you develop your acting techniques. I think for me, the most important thing an actor can work towards is trying their best to be as truthful as possible. Sometimes we think that acting is like lying, that we're making stuff up, that we can kind of come on stage, we can pull this face, we can say this line in exactly this way, and that even we might be able to cry. But that's not how people work. They don't plan out every single element of their actions as they live their lives. So when we do approach acting like that, it kind of makes our performances look fake and practiced, not real and raw like life is. And if at the end of the day people can see through you, it's not a very good lie in the first place. Audiences come to the theatre because they want to see something real. They want to feel something meaningful. And that's kind of the beauty of theatre, that it is live and that you can have those really big emotional moments sat in an auditorium. So when audiences are coming to the theatre to see something real, see something meaningful, they expect us as actors to give them something real and meaningful. So instead of best thinking about how to tell a lie, think about how best to tell the truth. Think about how you make the scene as real as possible. Sometimes, in my experience, the best way to do this is to keep the scene fresh by playing games. A bit of an odd concept, but playing games helps us to live the scene and stops us becoming over-practiced and fake. When we play games, we become focused on the scene at hand and the action. So I'm just going to give you a quick example of this. So if I was to direct a production of Romeo and Juliet, for example, and I come to the scene where Tybalt confronts Mercutio, and they have this kind of playful fight. It's a little bit violent, a little bit sinister, but it's also quite jovial and tricky. And there's a lot of complex emotions going through there. So I might ask my actors to play a game with it. I might get them to play a game of tag, and see how that changes the scene. So I might say, Tybalt, you are it. Your job is to try and tag Mercutio. Mercutio, and perhaps even the other Montagues who are around him are playing as well. They're trying their best not to get tagged. So you see Tybalt running around trying to grab these people, and Mercutio and the rest are dodging out of the way quite joyfully, and they're still speaking the dialogue, they're still acting the play, but we've now added in this little game that they're playing. So what happens when we do this? The actors they become less concerned about where they're meant to be standing, what they're meant to be doing, how they're meant to move over here, what spot they're meant to be on stage, and they're living the scene. They're focused on the relationship of the characters, and the action becomes more truthful because they're playing that game. They're desperately trying to play that game, so what they're doing on stage is real. It's also helpful for directors. You're not blocking your actors' creativity. You're letting your actors be artists and explore things. And, you're not telling them to stand in certain directions. You're letting the actors kind of make up the scene, and you're letting your actors be artists. So think about how else a game of tag might work in a scene. Perhaps someone has arrived at a party. They're trying to make friends, but no one really likes them and they're trying to avoid them. You might develop a scene from that. So your challenge today is to think about a game that you might have played in the playground and how you might transform that into a scene. Can you devise a scene from one of these games like I just described? Or maybe you could find an existing scene in a play and invent a game to happen whilst you perform it. I'll give you some examples of times that we've used games in actual performances. So we were doing some scenes from Wizard of Oz, and it was the scene in which Dorothy first comes across the Scarecrow, and the Scarecrow is stuck on a fence or a pole, and Dorothy has to get him down. He gets down and he can't. His legs are made of hay, so he's kind of wobbling all over the place and falling over. And Dorothy has to pick him up. We knew in this scene that Dorothy had to become quite frustrated with Scarecrow, and so we thought we would genuinely get Dorothy to be quite frustrated with Scarecrow. So we told Dorothy, your mission in this scene is to get the Scarecrow up to standing on his 2 feet. Scarecrow, your job is to imagine that your body is made of jelly, and you're going to make it as difficult as possible for Dorothy to achieve her goal. What happened then was this really funny scene where Dorothy's desperately trying to get the Scarecrow to stand up, but he's falling over, and Dorothy is getting really frustrated, and I mean really frustrated, the actor is. And that helped her performance because she started to experience the same emotions that Dorothy is. Another example was during Love of a Nightingale, where a character had to get these other people's attention. She had to find these characters and get their attention, but they're ignoring her. They're not speaking to her. They're blanking her. And she desperately wants them to answer a question. So we gave the one character who wanted their attention, Procne, we said, you are going to desperately try and get their attention. You are going to do everything in your power to get their attention. Other characters, your job is to ignore her and to not respond to her and do your best to ignore her. What then happened was this really great scene where, Procne is just becoming desperate to get their attention. So she's screaming, she's yelling, she's jumping up and down. And it really made the scene come alive because she was genuinely playing the game that her character was. Forgive me, I'm doing a lot of talking, so I need to make sure I'm drinking plenty of water. So there's a reason that we call it a play. Really young children play make-believe games so they can get a better understanding of the world around them. And we do exactly the same thing when we act in a performance. And the more we enjoy a performance and revel in it as a game, the stronger our performances become. We never truly stop playing games as we get older. The games just become more complex and often involve higher stakes. When you read a scene, think about what your character's game is. What do they want to win? And what are the tactics they're going to use to win? This is how I imagine Stanislavski's objectives and actions, if anyone is familiar with Stanislavski. Then when you start to play your character's games and play them well, you really bring your character to life. And if you play it really, really well, you'll prompt a reaction from the actor performing across from you. John Wright, the great practitioner who I love, says it best when he says not to worry about how well you're performing, but how well the person across from you is performing. It's your job to get them feeling those emotions, and you do that by trying your best to prompt a reaction from the other performer. I hope that all makes sense. If you have any questions, I'm going to be on Instagram Live from 3 p.m. Ask me anything that you want about what I've just said. Hopefully I might be able to clear some things up if I have confused anyone. So, your exercise. Think of a playground game that you can turn into a scene, or perhaps find a scene that's already written and think about how you might use an existing playground game to try and bring that scene to life. I do also have some recommendations. These are just some books and some writers who I think are really, really interesting and have really personally inspired me. So if you are interested, I can really recommend True and False by David Mamet. It's a really challenging book with lots of really profound and quite blunt looks at theatre and how to create truth on stage. I really would recommend it. I've also got 2 books here by Keith Johnson. Keith Johnston is I guess he is the improv guru, but also he has some great notes and exercises as well about acting, really. And I think using his improv techniques, he really cuts to the core about making your performance as truthful as possible. So I really would recommend reading some of those. Finally, Yoshi Oida, who is a really, really interesting actor and talks a lot about how to really, really get to truth as a performer and making yourself what he calls invisible. And I'll let him explain that. He probably does it a lot better than me. But his practice is really, really interesting. It comes from kind of generating your character using physical exercises, and he talks about those a lot in his books. So I'll let you discover those for yourself. Finally, if it's helpful, think about your favorite actor and think about why they're your favorite actor. And that should be a starting point for you to discover yourself as a performer. When you make these scenes, if you do them at home, feel free to record them and send them in to us. And we might put them up on one of our platforms. Again, if you have any questions, I'll be on Instagram Live at 3 p.m. Thanks, guys, and do take care.